Chapter 1. I came, I saw, I regret everything. I woke up in dirt. Actual, crusty, probably someone's bathroom at some point dirt. I sat up slowly, which was a mistake, because my head throbbed and something poked me in the ass. A rock, of course. The universe was already making it clear how things were going to be. First impressions of my surroundings. Grass, mist, a horse staring at me like it knew I was about to make bad life choices. I blinked. 2 moons. 2. That wasn't right. Then came the memory like a dumpster fire in reverse. Oh no. I knew this field. I knew this horse. I knew this plot. Because last month, I'd skimmed a dumb fantasy web novel during a late-night doomscroll. Something about warlords and chosen heroes and a terrifying villain who murdered people for fun and plot development. I had not expected to wake up in it. I glanced down at my clothes. Cheap leather belt, a dagger the size of my anxiety. No name tag, nothing important. My role? Based on the vibe? Background extra number 12. Maybe traveling merchant who dies for shock value. Hell no. I am not dying in a novel I didn't even finish reading. I muttered. Step 1. Escape the plot. I eyed the donkey tied nearby. It looked slow, suspicious, and mildly homicidal. Perfect. All right, buddy, you're my ticket out of exposition range. Let's go break narrative structure, I said, untying its reins. I swung into the saddle, after 3 failed attempts, grabbed the reins, and turned toward the woods like a man who just remembered how to cheat fate. And then the donkey bolted. Not into the woods. Not away from plot. Oh no. It went straight down the hill, toward a black trail of smoke. I hate you, I screamed. Step 2. Fail immediately. There was a procession on the road. Rows of soldiers in black armor, swords gleaming, eyes soulless. Their banner was a stylized wolf surrounded by flame. Bad guys. Definitely bad guys. At the center of it all was him. Tall, pale, eyes like dying stars, wearing a cape that moved like it had opinions. And boots. Gleaming, ridiculous boots that could have stomped a fashion runway or a rebellion. Dean, the villain, and the stupid donkey, charged straight at him. Nope, nope, nope. I yanked on the reins and the donkey skidded to a halt exactly 3 feet from the warlord of darkness. I, meanwhile, was yeeted from the saddle like an unwanted plot twist. Landed hard, rolled, and came to rest at Dean's feet. I blinked up at Dean. He blinked down at me. Red eyes. No expression. No words. Just staring. Like I was a puzzle or a strange bug. Or maybe both. I braced for the sword. The lightning. The off with his head. Instead, he turned. Raised a hand. His men surged forward. And I, in all my wisdom, said, Okay, listen. It wasn't my intention to disturb your journey. This stupid donkey was the one who did. Step 3. Immediate regret. I was seized by 2 soldiers, then Dean stepped closer. You name, he asked. I considered lying. But my brain went blank and my mouth filled the silence with betrayal. Zane. Just Zane. No last name. Simple. Not important. Dean raised an eyebrow. The eyebrow said, Interesting. Cool, so, I'll just be leaving now, I said. No. Detain him. He looked at the guards. Detain? For what? Insolence, he replied. I'm not insolent. I'm just naturally disrespectful. Dean turned away without a word, cloak swishing like it had killed people. I was dragged. This is discrimination against innocent people. You can't arrest me for being myself. Hours later, I was tied to a tree near Dean's command tent, still alive, and, apparently, now an official prisoner of a man whose hobby was genocide and looking hot while doing it. My donkey had abandoned me. The last words I heard before passing out were from a soldier who looked extremely uncomfortable tying knots. Boss said to keep an eye on him. Said he might be useful. Useful. Me. A man who just casually talked to the scariest villain in fantasy fiction on sight. Well, this is going exactly how I didn't plan. I muttered. Chapter 2. If I die, it's your fault. I woke up to the smell of smoke and something suspiciously like goat meat. It took me a full 10 seconds to remember that I was tied to a tree outside the world's most dramatic villain's tent. I groaned and sat up. My back ached. My pride was already dead. I needed a plan. A clever, cunning, morally questionable plan to get out of this camp before I became a background corpse. My stomach growled. Okay, fine. I needed food first, then a plan. A soldier dropped a bowl of something at my feet and backed away like I had rabies. I peered into the bowl. It was brown, mysterious, possibly moving. Great fantasy gruel. Now with extra despair. I muttered. I took a cautious bite. Bad choice. Tasted like burnt oatmeal. Do you guys season things or just punish people with flavorless trauma? The soldier didn't respond. He just crossed his arms and stared at me. Another soldier joined him, whispering. I caught one word. Dean. Right. The villain. The problem. The tall, brooding murder lord who'd somehow decided not to incinerate me on sight. Honestly, the not killing was more terrifying than a death sentence. What did he want? Why was I still alive? Why did he look at me like I was a particularly confusing jigsaw puzzle? I'm going to die, I told the soup. I needed an out. Something dramatic. That's when the idea hit me. I waited until a soldier walked by, then flopped sideways and started moaning. Oh no, my organs. They're all failing. My spleen, it's ruptured. I can't feel my knees. I added, because I wasn't sure fantasy people had spleens, but it sounded dramatic. The soldier frowned. You were fine 10 minutes ago. That was before the gruel. You're not fooling anyone. Tell the warlord I'm dying. Tell him I said I regret disrespecting him. I gasped. He sighed and walked off, muttering something about idiots and divine punishment. Perfect. Now I just had to wait. 15 minutes later, a woman in crisp white robes stepped in, holding a pouch of herbs and wearing the same expression my mom used when I tried to skip school. Which part of you is dying? She asked. Emotionally? All of it. She rolled her eyes. Physically. Oh. Spleen. Lungs. Left foot. Hard to say. She bent down, grabbed my wrist, and took my pulse. Your heart rate is elevated. Because you're touching me. You're pretty and scary. That's a medical condition, right? I'm reporting that line to the general. Please do. She sighed again, muttered a spell I couldn't understand, then tossed a handful of herbs directly into my mouth. I choked, coughed, and nearly died for real. Healing tea if you weren't sick before, you are now, she said. Later that night, just as I was convincing myself that the worst was over and maybe, just maybe, I could escape in the chaos of darkness, he walked in. I sat up, trying to look both harmless and clever. Evening, my warlord. Come to check if I've expired yet. He just stared at me, then stepped closer. You're under observation, he said. Observation? Like science? Or like, we think he's a dumbass and want to see what he does next? I echoed. You are disruptive, he said. I'm entertaining. There's a difference. Dean's red eyes scanned me like he was filing away every inch for later judgment. Your illness. Is it cured? Oh, completely. Healer said it was just a temporary case of existential horror. Dean tilted his head. You're not afraid. I'm terrified. I'm just very bad at showing it, or hiding it, or doing anything useful with it, really, I said cheerfully. His gaze didn't soften. But something flickered there, something like interest, or confusion, or the desire to throw me into a lake and see what floated. You will dine with me tonight, he said. I'm sorry, what? Dinner. My table. Is that a threat? No. Is it a test? No. Is it, please be a hallucination? I'd love that. He turned and walked out without answering. Dinner was awkward. We sat in a massive tent at a table built for 12, with exactly 2 people and 1 loaf of bread between us. Dean said nothing. I stared at him. He stared at me. We ate in silence. Weird, tense silence that tasted like stew and anxiety. But I noticed something strange. Every time I shifted, every time I sighed or poked at the food, Dean's eyes flicked toward me, watching, calculating, as if trying to figure out if I was a threat, a joke, or some strange mix of both. I swallowed the last bite, leaned back and said, "Just so you know, if I die, it's your fault." Dean didn't answer. He didn't need to. He just watched me like I was already part of his plan. Chapter 3. You're mistaking me for someone who cares. I woke up in a tent. A real one. With walls. And a pillow. Which meant one of two things. I was dead and in heaven. B. I had been upgraded from prisoner to weird pet the villain finds amusing. I rolled over and immediately regretted it. Someone had left war armor casually draped over the table, and I stubbed my toe on what I hoped was a helmet and not a torture device. Okay, just breathe. Smile. Try not to die today. I muttered, limping. I opened the flap to find a soldier standing there like a brooding statue. Dean wants you. Wow. And here I thought I'd get a break from being vaguely threatened before breakfast. They dragged me into a massive command tent filled with the kind of people who could kill you with a spoon and still look bored about it. Dean was already there, standing at the head of the table like a villain-shaped statue with resting world domination face. "General, this is the person?" one of the men said. "Zane," Dean said, like the name itself was classified information. "Why is he here?" Dean looked at me, then back at them. Perspective. I blinked. Oh no. Am I being used as a human morale test? Like, look how bad it could be. At least you're not him? Dean didn't answer. He just gestured for me to sit. They started discussing a siege. Big words. Strategy stuff. I zoned out for 5 whole minutes until someone said, "We've tried 3 approaches. The east wall's impossible. The terrain collapses under cavalry." I raised my hand. Okay. Dumb question from the peanut gallery here. Has anyone tried faking a retreat and leading them down the ridge path? They all stared at me like I just licked the map. One of the generals said, "That's suicide. The ridge is narrow." Exactly, so you don't use everyone. Just a flashy distraction. Big noise, easy bait. You let them chase the retreating force, then collapse the ridge behind them with magic or explosives or, I don't know, giant angry goats. Whatever you people use. I said. Silence. Then Dean, without looking up, said, "Feint and containment. Could work." Another general frowned. "It's not bad. Risky. But clever." Dean looked at me. "How did you think of that? Video games? And trauma." After the meeting, everyone filed out, leaving just me and Mr. Murder Aura. I stood awkwardly by the map table, trying to pretend I hadn't just accidentally contributed to organized war crimes. "So that was fun. Can I go back to pretending to be dying now?" I said. Dean stepped closer. Not threatening, but still with the energy of someone deciding whether you're a chess piece or a landmine. "You will attend future councils." "Wait, what?" "You've been named a shadow advisor." "That sounds fake and ominous." "It means you speak, and I decide if it's worth acting on." "Oh good. So it's like being on a dating app but with more swords." Dean's gaze didn't shift. "You're unpredictable." "Thank you." That wasn't a compliment. It never is with you. By afternoon, I had a new tent, an actual change of clothes, and the growing suspicion that people thought I was Dean's new something. Soldiers whispered when I walked by. Some bowed. One guy offered me a wine jug and called me, "Your weirdness." I sipped it and said, "Thank you. That's the best title I've ever had." Inside my tent, I flopped on the cot and stared at the ceiling. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. I was supposed to die early, respawn in a normal world, and go back to avoiding responsibilities like a pro. Instead, I was thriving, eating real food, sleeping under canvas instead of dirt, possibly getting protected by the most terrifying man in the continent. I hate it here. That night, as I ate actual roasted chicken in a room without rats, I heard someone outside whisper, "Do you think he's Dean's favorite now?" Looks like it. Never seen the general let anyone talk back like that. He even smiled. Once, I think. I stared at the wall, chewing slowly. Smiled? Dean? No. No. We are not doing the emotionally constipated villain melts for chaotic idiot storyline. I didn't sign up for a romance arc. I am here to survive and God help me, maybe solve another military problem or two. But love? Nope. Absolutely not. Chapter 4. Flirting? No, I'm just rude. I have two major regrets in life. Disrespecting a warlord. Letting anyone think I was capable of advising on military strategy without burning a map. Now I have a third. Agreeing to observe morning combat training because Dean said it would be enlightening. It was. In the same way being hit by a carriage is enlightening. It was dawn. The air was cold. The swords were sharp. The people were way too enthusiastic about violence for that hour. I stood awkwardly at the edge of the sparring ring, trying not to look like a guy who once failed PE by faking asthma. Dean was in the center, dressed in all black, like he was modeling for Murder Vogue. Naturally, I opened my mouth. Cool moves, Dark Lord. Is this the part where you seduce your enemies with tragic backstory and shoulder muscles? Dean paused mid-parry. His opponent, a very unlucky lieutenant, used the distraction to land a hit. Didn't mean to distract you, just figured I'd contribute to morale. I added. Dean nodded once. Join me. I'm sorry. What? In the ring. Oh, I don't fight. I complain. Totally different skill set. He handed me a wooden practice sword. I took it the way someone might hold a cursed item wrapped in moldy ham. I'm more of a pacifist, I said. You're wearing a dagger. Decoration. You're a military advisor. I thought that was honorary, like a gold star or a fake title in a scam email. He didn't budge. Neither did his silent threat aura. So I stepped into the ring. This was fine. I'd done a semester of stage combat in college. I could flail dramatically and maybe guilt my way out of permanent injury. Dean held his sword. Attack me. Emotionally. Physically. Well, I can't promise it won't be both. I swung the sword. Poorly. Felt like wielding a broom after 5 margaritas. Dean blocked easily, stepped around me, and tapped my back with the flat of his blade. Dead, he said. I'm emotionally dead. Doesn't count. I muttered. I swung again. He dodged. I spun too hard and fell. Dean didn't laugh, but his mouth twitched. Just slightly. My brain short-circuited. Wait, was that a smirk? Did I break the Demon King's poker face? Someone call the historians. This is a major event. I limped out of the sparring ring. You need training, he said. I need therapy, and maybe a hot bath with wine. Dean didn't reply. He never replies when I get like this, which is annoying because it makes me feel like I'm talking to a wall with cheekbones. But he was watching me again, like he was studying the way I moved, or breathed, or self-destructed in real time. I'm not your project. I'm not some mysterious challenge for you to conquer between genocides, I said. Dean's eyes flicked up. You assume I have interest. I hope you don't, because that would be tragic. And a little gay. What if I did? My brain blue-screened. Did what? Have an interest? In me? No, that'd be weird. I'm loud and messy, and not emotionally stable enough for a slow-burn villain romance arc. Chapter 5. Villain with benefits. You ever eat something and immediately know you've made a mistake? Yeah. That was me. With the glowing meat. The camp cook had called it dragon boar. I should have known anything with the word dragon in it that wasn't a hot sauce would end badly. I took 2 bites. It was gamey, spicy, a little electric. 3 hours later, I was sweating like the sun had taken out a vendetta on me and shivering like I owed winter money. I tried to play it cool. Tried to stand. Failed so hard I met the floor. Okay. Maybe I'll just lie here and wait for death. Or a refund. I muttered. Someone must have found me flopped like a dying fish outside the healer's tent. Because the next thing I knew I was back on my cot. Stripped to my undershirt. And surrounded by herbs that smelled like wet grass and regret. The healer hovered over me, muttering spells and grinding something ominous looking in a bowl. I groaned and curled up. Tell Dean I'm dying. The tent flap rustled. And speak of the terrifying devil. Dean entered, tall and silent, dressed in black on black like a shadow had decided to cosplay a funeral. His eyes landed on me. He didn't speak, didn't blink, just took one slow look at my half-dead, sweat-drenched self and said, What happened? The healer answered. Poison. Low-grade curse residue in the food. He's fighting it. I raised a hand. Hi. Fighting is generous. Dean stepped closer. I saw his jaw tighten. Was it targeted? He asked, voice like a blade being drawn slowly. No, probably poor handling. Or lazy enchantment filtering. The healer said, glancing at me. Dean said nothing. His eyes flicked to me again. Not cold this time, not even calculating. Just still. Too still. Like he was trying very, very hard not to feel something. I cracked a smile. Don't look so grim, Commander Doom. Worst case, I will haunt after death. His gaze didn't shift. The healer stepped back. He needs rest. And someone to monitor him in case the fever spikes. Dean didn't respond. He just sat down beside my bed, crossed his arms, and stayed. I tossed. I turned. I whimpered once, just to test if he'd react. Nothing. He just watched. Not like a predator. Like a wall. Unmoving. Unshakable. You don't have to stay. V, I know I'm annoying even when conscious. I rasped. Still nothing. Seriously. I drool in my sleep. It'll ruin your whole scary reputation. Dean's voice was quiet. I've had worse. Oh good. My medical value. Slightly less repulsive than war trauma. You were not meant to be harmed. My heart did something stupid. I shoved a pillow over my face. Great. Now I'm someone's intended unharmed. Add that to my list of titles. I peeked out. Dean was still there. Watching. Breathing slowly. Perfectly still. And somehow that was worse than if he'd panicked. Because Dean didn't do panic. He did vengeance. He did control. So the fact that he was this still meant he was on the edge of snapping, and not at me. At whoever dared hurt me. Hours passed. The fever blurred time. I drifted in and out, sometimes dreaming of ramen, sometimes dreaming of video games. Once I hallucinated a very polite goat. But every time I opened my eyes, he was still there. Dean. Like a statue. Unmoving. You're really committed to this whole stoic villain thing, huh? No answer. I mean, usually a guy watching me sleep means we've kissed at least once. Still no answer. I coughed, winced, and curled up tighter. I'm not worth it, you know? That got a reaction. Dean's jaw tightened. You are not the one who decides that, he said. My stomach twisted, and it had nothing to do with the cursed meat. Later, way later, when the fever finally broke, I woke to find a blanket tucked around me, water beside the bed, and Dean asleep in the chair. Correction, not asleep, resting, like a panther with its eyes closed but its claws still sharp. He'd taken off his gloves. His hands were scarred. That did something weird to my chest. I didn't say anything. I just watched him for a moment and felt something tighten in my throat that was an illness. He was still terrifying, still powerful, still the walking embodiment of dramatic tension. But in that moment, sitting beside me in silence, not as a general but as a person, he looked human, and that scared me more than anything else. Because I could survive war. I could survive poison. I could even survive cursed boar meat. But I wasn't sure I'd survive being cared for. Chapter 6. Did you just laugh? Call the healer, he's broken. Here's the thing about war banquets. They're never about food. They're about power. And unfortunately for everyone involved, I was now considered a powerful asset, which meant I got an invite. I stared at myself in the mirror of my borrowed tent quarters, tugging at the collar of the aggressively black coat someone had stuffed me into. Formal attire, it's tradition, they said. It looked like a villain cosplay, and a funeral suit had a dramatic baby. Outside the flap, a soldier coughed. The general is waiting. Of course he is. I sighed, adjusted my coat, and stepped out like a man walking to his own execution, with extra eyeliner. The banquet hall, if you could call a giant war tent filled with chandeliers, expensive fabrics, and judgment, was buzzing. Nobles, generals, diplomats, people who used gold forks. Dean was already seated at the head table, looking like wrath in tailored black with a side of, I haven't smiled since the empire fell. He glanced up as I walked in. and I swear his eyes did a full body scan like he was taking inventory. "You look clean," he said. I bowed. "All part of my strategy to blend in with the rich and morally bankrupt." Dean said nothing, but his mouth twitched. Again. That's when I knew the world was ending. Dinner was painfully fancy. 7 courses. 4 kinds of cutlery. One highly punchable noble seated next to me. Duke Renlan of something was the kind of man who wore fur indoors and talked about bloodlines like it was a personality. He leaned toward me midway through a course and said, "You must be quite charming to have earned General Dean's favor." I smiled sweetly. "I'm like a fungal infection, persistent and hard to ignore." He blinked. "I meant no offense." "Great, because I'm definitely taking some." Dean, seated nearby, didn't look up, but I caught it. The subtle twitch of a brow. The way his fingers flexed just once on his goblet. Of course, some of us were born to lead. We didn't have to claw our way up through. I cut him off. Yes, and some of us were born with brains. Tragic, really? The entire left side of the table froze. Dean finally looked up and smiled. A real one. Teeth and everything. I blinked. Dean's smirk faded instantly, but the damage was done. I leaned in toward Renlan and whispered, "If he laughs twice in one night, I think a portal opens." After dinner, the whispers started. He made the general laugh. He insulted a duke and survived. Do you think my favorite rumor, he must be enchanted. Yeah. Enchanted by fear, trauma, and an inability to shut up in the face of power. Back in my tent, I flopped onto the cot and groaned into a pillow. I was supposed to be flying under the radar. Now people looked at me like I had Dean on a leash, which, let's be clear, if anyone's holding a leash in this dynamic, it's not me. Later that night, I was staring at the ceiling, trying not to spiral, when Dean entered without knocking. As usual, I sat up, blinking. Hi. Are we doing our brooding in silence bonding ritual again?" He stepped in, quiet, controlled. "You embarrassed a duke." I shrugged. "I was born to disappoint people with money." Dean tilted his head. "You don't care about their opinions." "I don't care about most things. It's my greatest skill." He stepped closer. "That's dangerous. For me, or for you?" His eyes flicked to mine. Something simmered there. Something unsaid. Something stupidly intense. Panicked. "I'm not flirting. I'm just rude. There's a difference." I said way too fast. He stared. I laughed. Nervous. Awkward. "That was a joke. Mostly. We're not doing this, right? The thing where your coldness melts and I become the exception? That's not happening." Dean didn't blink. "You are unlike anyone I've known," he said. I physically recoiled. Gross. And then I tripped on the edge of my own cot, caught myself, and groaned. He just watched me. I flailed harder. "Look, let's just go back to the way things were. You glare at people. I insult your fashion choices. We both pretend there are no feelings." Dean's expression didn't shift. "I will protect you whether you want me to or not," he said. Then he left. Like that wasn't a big deal. Like I hadn't just been emotionally threatened by a man who could command armies and didn't blink when murdering people, but apparently needed me to be safe. I stood alone in my tent, brain melting. He was falling for me. The cold, terrifying warlord villain was into me. I sat down, buried my face in my hands, and whispered, "Someone put me back in the dirt where I belong." Chapter 7. We're not friends. We're acquaintances with murder potential. I knew something was wrong the moment someone handed me a cravat. "What's this for?" I asked, holding it up like it might bite me. "The diplomatic summit you're expected at General Dean's side," the soldier replied. Expected was such a nice word for trapped. Summit was an even fancier way of saying, 10 rich people talk about borders and I die inside. I got dressed and looked like someone's exiled cousin who might be rich but also might be cursed. And Dean? Dean looked like the walking personification of silent judgment in an embroidered high-collar coat and zero patience. His outfit said, "I'll negotiate, but only if you cry." We entered the tent together. Classic. The summit was exactly what I expected. A circle of nobles, generals, and self-important diplomats comparing whose voice sounded most like an old boot. "Your Majesty, we must consider the border agreement," one of them said to Dean. I leaned slightly toward Dean and whispered, "How many of these people have you stabbed before?" He didn't answer, so I kept going. "How many do you want to stab right now? Is it more than 3? It's more than 3, isn't it?" Dean finally turned his head, stared at me for 2 seconds, and then went back to the discussion without a word. I counted that as a win. But then someone said my name. "Zane?" The Duke of something boring began. "Since you've been advising General Dean, what's your perspective on the neutral territories?" I blinked, looked at Dean. He didn't save me. Oh no. Oh hell no. I stood. My perspective is that this entire meeting has the energy of an overcooked carrot and I need to pee. And then I walked out, fast, like my dignity was chasing me. And then I ducked into the first tent that wasn't filled with judgmental stares and moral decay. Food storage. I crawled behind a stack of crates filled with dried fruit and pretended I was dead. It was peaceful. Almost. Smelled vaguely of cinnamon and shame. Then footsteps. Dean stepped inside, paused, then said in his usual terrifyingly calm voice, "You're hiding in a pantry." "No, I'm blending with the spices. I've decided to become cardamom," I said. He stepped closer. "You abandoned a summit. I improved its quality." Dean stared at me. I glared back. "You ran." "Yes, because the political equivalent of a swamp is not where I thrive." Dean didn't speak. Instead, he sat down on a crate beside mine. Quiet, heavy, like the silence itself took up space. I hated it. So naturally, I ruined it. "Why do you keep me around? Really? And don't say unpredictability, because I'm pretty sure you could adopt a raccoon for that," I asked. Dean didn't answer, but his eyes, red, unreadable, met mine. And after a beat, he said, "You're honest. That's it? That's the reason? You like me because I say things?" I asked. "You speak without calculation, even when it's dangerous. Especially when it's dangerous," he said. I laughed, bitter. "So you keep me close because I'm a liability?" "No, because you make me remember I'm not just a sword," he said. That shut me up. The quiet that followed was sharp enough to cut. Dean didn't move. Neither did I. Finally, I muttered, "You need a hobby." He looked at me again. "I enjoy your company." My brain error 404. I stood. Fast. Too fast. "No. Nope. We're not doing this." Dean raised an eyebrow. "Doing what?" The thing. The weird bond. The meaningful silences. You looking at me like I'm a sunrise instead of a walking disaster." I said, flailing. "You are a disaster, but I don't mind the chaos," he said. "I do. We're not friends. We're acquaintances with murder potential." Dean stood, stepped forward. "Close. Too close." "You're afraid." I scoffed. "I'm always afraid. It's my baseline state." "No, you're afraid of being seen," he said. And that cut too deep. I looked away. "I'm not a good person, Dean. You're not pretending to be." That should have been comforting. It wasn't. It was worse. Because he meant it. Because he liked it. Because I couldn't lie to him even when I wanted to. Chapter 8. Your plot armor is showing. Here's a fun fact. When you become the emotional support disaster of a terrifying warlord, you make enemies. Not your enemies. His enemies. The ones who see you as a weak point, or a useful hostage, or a plot convenience to be eliminated. I found that out the hard way. Via a knife. It was supposed to be a normal day, by which I mean I only insulted 2 nobles before lunch and Dean hadn't glared at anyone to death in at least an hour. Progress. I just finished sneaking a cinnamon tart from the kitchens. Totally earned? Don't ask. And was heading back to my tent when someone grabbed me from behind. My first thought wasn't assassin. It was, oh God, is this another spontaneous sword lesson? I was wrong. They didn't speak. Just yanked me behind the storage tent and pulled a blade. And that's when my brain caught up. Black cloaks. Fast movements. 0 camp markings. Okay. This feels a little murdery, I muttered. I tried to dodge. I really did. But I'm not a soldier. I'm not a fighter. I'm a freelance problem with good hair and no combat skills. The knife sliced my side. Shallow, but it burned. I screamed. Loud. Full volume. Undignified. Opera-level panic. That was my only useful move. Because 5 seconds later, he arrived. The assassin didn't see him coming. I did. I saw Dean. He cut through the first attacker like the air owed him favors. Blood sprayed. The second assassin tried to run. Dean reached out, one-handed, grabbed the guy by the neck and slammed him into the side of the supply cart. I watched, clutching my bleeding side, as Dean stood over their twitching bodies like some vengeful god of overkill. Then he turned to me, and everything in me, all the sass, the fire, the snark, went silent. Because his face, it wasn't blank. It was shaking. Dean never shakes. He was at my side in seconds, kneeling, pulling my hand away from the wound. It's shallow, just dramatic. Like me, I said, because I didn't know what else to say. He didn't laugh. He didn't smile. He pressed his palm to the wound, magic humming under his skin. Eyes locked on mine like I'd vanish if he blinked. You could have died, he said. Not loud. Not angry, just shattered. I swallowed. Yeah, but I didn't. Look at me. Still annoying. Dean looked up, his jaw clenched, and then he said, dead serious. If they'd killed you, I would have burned this continent to ash. I laughed, because what else was I supposed to do? That's very sweet and horrifying, thank you. But he didn't laugh back. He meant it. Every word. I was patched up within an hour. Dean personally carried me to the healer's tent. By evening, I was lying on a cot, side bandaged, because it wasn't just that he'd saved me. It was how he'd looked doing it. Like the world had cracked. Like I was the crack. I tried to joke it away. Wow, my plot armor is insane. I should bottle this luck. Dean, standing in the corner like a terrifying statue, replied without emotion. It's not luck. That's when I started panicking. Not because of the wound, but because I was starting to believe it. That I mattered. That someone like Dean, someone who ruined kings and crushed rebellions, had chosen me. And worse, that I was starting to care. I looked away. I'm fine, seriously. I've had paper cuts more traumatic. I muttered. Dean didn't move. He just said, don't scare me like that again, and left before I could answer. Which was good. Because I didn't have an answer. Only this loud, messy feeling in my chest that I couldn't scream away. Chapter 9. Please stop being romantic. It's gross. There's something especially ominous about being summoned by a man who's already made it clear he'd commit arson in your name. So when a soldier said, the general wants you in his tent, he said it's urgent. I did what any mature, responsible adult would do. Panicked. Then I went anyway. Because, unfortunately, I'm weak to power, flattery, and mystery-based invitations. Dean didn't even look up when I entered. He was standing behind his war desk, flipping through parchment like he was filing execution forms. Hi, I said. He looked at me. Effective immediately, you are no longer an unofficial advisor. I blinked. I'm sorry, am I being promoted? You're now my shadow advisor. It's a formal position. Wow, so you're making me sound even less trustworthy. What's next? Mysterious consort of doom. He handed me a scroll. This outlines your duties. I unrolled it. It was blank. You're kidding. Dean didn't blink. Your only duty is to stay near me. I choked. That's not a job. I find your presence stabilizing. Oh God, you're emotionally attached. I knew this was going too well. An hour later, a uniform was delivered to my tent. Black, silver-trimmed, high-collared, and definitely overcompensating for something. It looked like it belonged in a very niche romance novel. I put it on, mostly out of spite, also because I'm vain and it made my shoulders look great. But I drew the line at the sleeves. They were too tight, restrictive. I needed to breathe and flail dramatically if needed. So I tore the sleeves off. added a belt, undid 3 buttons, looked in the mirror and said, "Villain chic, but make it unhinged." Perfect. I went to report back to Dean, because apparently that's what advisors do. His tent flap was half open. I didn't knock. Big mistake. Dean was mid-change, shirt off, back turned, muscles like divine punishment, scars across his spine, tattoo of something ancient and definitely magical curling down one side. My brain, no thoughts, only regret. Dean turned slightly, caught me staring. "Do you need something?" he asked, calm, like he wasn't standing there looking like a weaponized thirst trap. "Sorry, didn't mean to. I thought you were buttons. You have them. I should go." He raised an eyebrow. "You're flustered." I'm appalled. Big difference. I turned to leave. He said, "You look good in the uniform." I tore half of it. I noticed. Dean's gaze didn't move from mine. "You did that to provoke me." "I did that because I hate fashion constraints." He stepped closer. Too close. "You provoke me constantly, not just with your clothes," he said, voice lower now. I swallowed. "I flirt to cope," I whispered. "Dean, do you?" And then the air snapped. Panicked. Which meant I said something stupid. You know, this would be a great time to kiss me, and then pretend it never happened. Dean paused. Just stared. I laughed, weak and desperate. "Kidding. I'm kidding. That was a bit." Sarcastic flirting. My brand. He leaned in. Just enough that I could feel his breath against my neck. "I don't make jokes. When I want something, I take it," he said. I stopped breathing entirely. He didn't kiss me, didn't touch me, just straightened his collar, stepped back and said, "You're dismissed." I fled. There's no elegant word for it. I fled. Back in my tent, I threw the uniform jacket across the room, flopped face first into my cot, and screamed into a pillow. "This is not a romance." I said it out loud, twice. But then I remembered the way he looked at me, the way he stepped closer, the way he didn't kiss me even though I half wanted him to, the fact that he'd said he liked me near him, that he gave me a title that meant nothing and everything. And worst of all, the fact that I didn't want to leave. Not anymore. Not really. "Please stop being romantic. It's gross," I muttered to the tent walls. Chapter 10. The heroes want me back. Hard pass. Sometimes, I forget this is all supposed to be someone else's story. I wasn't meant to be the center of anything. I wasn't supposed to wear a custom uniform or get death threats filtered through love language. I was just meant to die. Quick. Easy. Forgettable. But now the heroes' party wanted me back. And I had no idea if that was salvation or a reset button with guilt frosting. They came under a flag of truce. The heroes' squad. The golden boys. The chosen ones with perfect teeth and extremely annoying moral clarity. Their leader, Cyril, smiled at me like I was a lost puppy. "Zane, you don't belong here," he said warmly. I looked at the blood-stained war map, the soldier polishing a sword behind me, and the shadow of Dean pacing just out of view. I raised an eyebrow. "Define here. This side. His side. You're not like them." "Well, no. I'm snarkier." Cyril didn't laugh. He never laughs. "That's how you know he's one of the chosen ones." He stepped closer. "Come back with us. We'll protect you." I stared. Protect me? From what? From Dean? From the war? From my own stupid heart? I told Dean I was going. I expected fury, resistance, the full touch him and die package. Instead, he just stood there, staring at me like he was memorizing my shape. "You're leaving," he said. "Temporarily, probably. Maybe. Don't look at me like that." I lied. He didn't argue, didn't order me to stay, didn't even frown. He just nodded once. The kind of nod people give at funerals. Then turned away. And somehow that was worse than being chased. Couldn't leave it like that. Not completely. So I did what any emotionally constipated disaster would do. I wrote a letter, scrawled on war report paper in the worst ink I could find. "Dear Ice Prince of Murder, I'm leaving before this turns into some sort of weird epic love story. You should thank me. Tragedy doesn't suit my skin tone. Try not to die. Or worse, pine. That would be embarrassing for both of us. Also, I'm keeping the boots. They make my calves look incredible. Sincerely, your least professional advisor, Zane. I left it on his desk, under his sword, because I'm brave like that. Or stupid. Probably both. The hero camp was clean, organized, sanitized. They gave me food, a soft bed, people who smiled too much, and I hated every second, because they didn't ask how I was. They asked what Dean did to me. They didn't see me. They saw a lost cause to rescue. I cracked a joke at dinner. Silence. I made a sarcastic comment about the overcooked rations. More silence. That's when I realized. They didn't want me back. They wanted the idea of me. The harmless, sad little civilian they could tuck into their redemption arc. But I'm not that guy anymore. Dean didn't change me. He just noticed me. The real me. And now I was in a camp full of good guys, who made me feel more invisible than I ever had at Dean's side. Back at the war camp, I have no idea what Dean did after I left. But I know he read the letter. Probably more than once. Definitely didn't laugh. Maybe stared at the ink until it blurred. Maybe whispered my name like it was a command he couldn't give. But he didn't come after me. And I'm still not sure if that hurts more or less. Chapter 11. Turns out I'm too petty to die. Let the record show I tried to be good. I wore the neutral tunic. I smiled politely. I didn't roast anyone for a full 24 hours. But on day 3 with the hero camp, someone actually patted my shoulder and said, "You'll readjust soon. Trauma clings to people like him." And I blacked out for a full 10 seconds from pure emotional violence. It was like living in a commune run by passive-aggressive therapists. Everything was healing this, reintegrating that, and finding your true center. No one asked me what I wanted. They just assumed I'd want to be saved, that I'd see my time with Dean as something to recover from. Like he was a disease, a bad decision, a phase. "You were manipulated," Cyril said one morning, like it was fact. "He used you." I stared at him for a long moment and then said, "You ever thought maybe I liked being wanted? You ever thought maybe you're the manipulator for trying to scrub off the parts of me that don't fit your neat little redemption arc?" Silence. Then Cyril smiled gently, like I was a toddler having a tantrum. I almost punched him. It happened the next day, right around dusk. First came the rumble, then the screaming, then the very familiar sound of black armored soldiers crashing through magical wards like they were made of wet paper. "Dean," I called. I ran to the edge of the camp. Smoke rose in curls. Flaming arrows sliced the sky. And there in the chaos was Dean. Sword drawn. Expression. Zero emotion. Murder mode activated. He wasn't yelling. He didn't need to. He was coming for me. The hero soldiers scrambled to form a defense. Spells flew. Shouts overlapped. I ducked behind a tent, clutching my coat. Then Dean saw me and stopped, right in the middle of everything, like the chaos didn't exist. I stepped forward. "Dean, what the hell are you doing?" He didn't raise his voice. "Retrieving what's mine." My stomach flipped. Cyril stepped beside me, sword drawn. "You don't own him." Dean turned his gaze on him. One look. Flat. Lethal. "Then why did he leave a letter saying goodbye?" Cyril hesitated. And that's when I snapped. "Oh, for fuck's sake. Everyone shut up." Every sword froze. Even the sky felt like it held its breath. I stormed between the two of them, pointing wildly at both. "You're both dramatic, emotionally stunted, war-obsessed disasters, and I am so tired." I turned on Cyril. "You treat me like a broken teacup." I turned on Dean. "And you treat me like I'm the only piece left in your entire world, and I cannot carry that." Dean said nothing. "You know what I want? I want someone to look at me and not see a project. Or a symbol. Or a goddamn ticking time bomb." I shouted. Dead silence. Then Dean softly, "I see you." God help me, I believed him. I stood there, panting, bleeding slightly from a minor cut, heart too full and too broken to keep lying to myself. "I don't belong here," I muttered. Cyril's jaw tightened. He's dangerous. So am I snapped. I turned back to Dean. This doesn't mean anything. I'm still mad. I'm not doing sappy speeches. Okay, fine. I belong in a bar, not a battlefield. But if I have to choose between emotionally repressed paladin camp and the guy who killed 3 people because someone bruised my ego, I sighed. Then I'm picking the one who actually listens. Dean stepped forward, offering a hand. I rolled my eyes. This is gonna ruin both our reputations. And I took it anyway. That was a declaration. And everyone knew it. Chapter 12. So you're in love with me. Gross. Here's the thing about rejoining a war criminal side after a very public breakup with the hero squad. The gossip writes itself. Day 1 back at camp. A soldier asked if I was Dean's emotional support concubine. I said yes, just to see if he'd choke on his stew. He did. Worth it. That night, I was summoned to Dean's private tent. Again. But this time, it wasn't about maps or uniforms or assigning me titles with 0 job description. He just stood there, in the middle of the room. No sword, no armor, just him, looking at me like he'd been standing there rehearsing this all day. I swear if you've made me another advisor position, I'm staging a coup, I said. Dean didn't blink. No titles. I narrowed my eyes. No ambush diplomacy? No strategic announcements? No, wait, are you dying? I need to tell you something. Oh, hell no. That's the worst sentence in the universe. That's what people say before proposals or breakups or, I found your browser history. I braced. Okay, hit me. He stepped closer. I desire your presence beside me. I blinked. Is that a confession? Yes. You just confessed. In that tone. I am confessing. I stared. I've had more passionate love confessions from rotting fruit. I'm not good at this, Dean said evenly. No kidding. I laughed. Too loud. Too sharp. Okay, cool. So we're doing this. Romance arc unlocked. Achievement. Ice Warlord's heart. What's next? Matching cloaks. Dean didn't smile. He just looked steady. Too steady. Like nothing I said could throw him now. You don't have to return it, he said. I blinked. Return what? The feeling. My mouth went dry. I mean, obviously I'm not obligated. I'm not. Ugh. Are we talking about feelings now? Seriously. I said, heart hammering. Dean just stood there. Unmoving. Unwavering. Waiting. I paced. Fast. Aimless. I flirt to deflect. I said. It's a thing. It doesn't mean anything. I don't do feelings. I do sarcasm and panic and... He was still watching me. Still not moving. And then I said the stupidest thing I've ever said in my life. We should kiss. Just to get it over with. Dean blinked. Once. He stepped forward. Closer. I could feel his breath. Smell the faint scent of storm magic and steel and something I'd now decided was specifically him. He leaned in. Almost. And then I panicked. I jerked back and said, wait, I forgot. My lips are cursed. Silence. His brow lifted. Cursed. Yep. If you kiss me, you'll, turn to a frog. Dean stepped back. You're afraid. No, I'm cursed. I snapped. Dean didn't argue. Didn't push. He just grabbed me suddenly and kissed me like it was the end of the world. Lips parted. Tongues fought like in a Spanish kiss. That was my first time being kissed. Even in real world, I was just a nerd with glasses and an uncontrollable mouth. But now, my uncontrollable mouth is getting its punishment and I liked it so damn much. I felt like my breath holds and I couldn't breath when he parted our lips. I was gasping for air when he said, closer to my ear, teasing me in every way. Then I'll be that frog. And that was worse than kissing. Because it meant he wasn't giving up. And I already felt for this love trap. And the worst scenario, I was enjoying every moment of it.